We're here to protect you and the ones that you love. It's a good feeling to know that our efforts aren't going unnoticed.
It actually brought tears to my eyes to know that we have this support.
You're welcome. I must just say, you're welcome. It's stressful, but we're not going anywhere.
Welcome to another edition of Bucknell Cross Country Through the Decades. Tonight we do the decade of the 1980s. We've got some outstanding guests joining current head coach Kevin Donner and Evan Miner, one of our current student athletes here at Bucknell. Evan is a senior from Glen Gardner, New Jersey. We appreciate Evan being on the call tonight. My name's Todd Newcomb. I want to thank Geisinger as our sponsor for tonight's session. Geisinger has done a tremendous job throughout the entire pandemic, and they always do a great job day in and day out with our athletes here at Bucknell. So I want to thank them for their support. Without any further ado, I'm going to introduce our guest for tonight, and then I'll turn it over to Coach. So our first guest from the class of 1982 is Rick Sayre. Rick was All-East in 1980, where he finished 12th in that race. He was a three-time NCAA qualifier with a career best finish of 69th in 1979. In outdoor track, he was a two-time ECC champion, a two-time All-East selection, a two-time NCAA qualifier, and an All-American in 1981 after a 12th place finish in the steeplechase. He was a three-time ECC champion and a two-time All-East performer in the 5,000-meter run. He was a two-time ECC Scholar Athlete Award winner, and he won an NCAA postgraduate scholarship in 1982. Rick won the Bison Club Award at the Senior Awards Dinner, and he was inducted into the Bucknell Athletics Hall of Fame in 1991. Our next guest from the class of 1983 is Mark Hulme. Mark was a three-time All-East selection, where he finished as high as 15th in 1981. He was a four-time NCAA qualifier with a career best finish of 62nd in 1982. In outdoor track, Mark won the ECC title in the 1,500-meter run in 1983 and was an All-East selection. In indoor track, he was a three-time ECC champion and the outstanding athlete of the meet in 1983 and was an NCAA qualifier in the mile in 1982. Mark won the Bison Club Award at the Senior Awards Dinner, and he was inducted into the Bucknell Athletics Hall of Fame in 2001. Our next guest from the class of 1984 is Bill Reifsnyder. Bill was a four-time ECC individual champion in cross country. He was four-time All-East, where he finished as high as third, both in 1980 and 1982. And he was a four-time NCAA qualifier and a three-time All-American, with his best finish coming in 1983 when he was 15th. In outdoor track, he was a four-time East Coast Conference champion, a four-time All-East selection, and an NCAA qualifier and All-American in 1982 after a 17th place in the 10K. In indoor track, he was a four-time ECC champion, All-East in 1982, and an NCAA qualifier and All-American in 1984 in the 3,000-meter run. He won the Christy Mathewson Award at the Senior Awards Dinner, and he was inducted into the Bucknell Athletics Hall of Fame in 1989. Our next guest from the class of 1985 is Brian Harshman. Brian was a two-time All-East selection, finishing as high as 17th in 1983. He qualified for the NCAAs in 1982, finishing 121st in that race. In outdoor track, he won the ECC title in the 1,500-meter run in 1985 and was an NCAA qualifier in the 5,000-meter run in 1984. In indoor track, he was a five-time East Coast Conference champion and the outstanding athlete of the meet in 1985, and he was an All-East selection in 1984 in the 3,000-meter run. Brian won the Bison Club Award at the Senior Awards Dinner, and he was inducted into the Bucknell Athletics Hall of Fame in 2003. And our final guest from the class of 1988, that's a great class, Charles. That's my class as well. We were actually freshman hallmates. Charles Cole from the class of 88, East Coast Conference individual champion in cross country in both 1986 and 1987. He was a two-time All-East selection, where he finished as high as 17th in 1985. He was a three-time NCAA qualifier with a career best finish of 91st in 1986. And in outdoor track, he was a two-time East Coast Conference champion, taking the 5,000-meter run in 1986 and the 10K in 1988. In indoor track, he was ECC champion in the 3-mile run in 1988 who won the Bison Club Award at the Senior Awards Dinner. And Charles was inducted into the Bucknell Athletics Hall of Fame in 2010. So Kevin, you've got some incredible talent on this call. Hall of Famers across the board. This is going to be a fun one. I'm going to turn it over to you.
I was just thinking about that. You had to be a Hall of Famer just to get invited to this thing. So I'm going to make sure to harass some of those people from the 90s and 2000s that aren't in the Hall of Fame. That they, you know, back in the 80s, you had to make the Hall of Fame just to make this call. So, but anyway, guys, I really appreciate you being on here. This is going to be a lot of fun. Obviously, I respect the history of this program. What you guys did during your era is just unbelievable. What you've done, just incredible. It's still talked about. I don't know how Art Golden did it, but what a heck of a coach. I tell people that if I can end my career as the second best coach in Bucknell history in the last 50 years, I'll be happy. By the way, it's been 51 between him and me and Art Golden now. So at least there's some stability there. But anyway, Evan Miner, you know, he's a senior on the team. He's improved every year. Just ran we did a little 5K time trial on Saturday night just to, you know, bust some rust. And obviously you heard our season was canceled by the Patriot League, but we're still training. And Evan's really put in a lot of good miles the last year and a half, and he's really starting to come to himself. But he also knows the history of our program. He's kind of a history buff, and I know he studied all you guys and shows a lot of respect. But we'll start off with some questions here. Before we begin sharing some of the great memories of your time at Bucknell, I'm going to ask this for Charles here, since he has the big screen in front of him right now. Can you share us or update us on your personal life, where you live, your career, your family, etc.?
Sure. After graduating, I went to University of Maryland for medical school, and then did my family practice residency in Virginia, which is conveniently where they had the 1987 cross-country championship. So I live just a few miles away from where we raised. And now I'm a family doctor in rural Virginia. I have a wife and 4 children and living the life.
All right, good, thanks. Let's go to Rick. Tell us what you're doing now.
Same thing I've done for the, you know, since I graduated college. We've got, my wife and I actually have our own business. We've got 2 boys who are 26 now, and Kevin, obviously you're, you know Evan a little bit, and yeah, we're nearing the end of that stuff. It's
okay.
They're old enough where we're nearing the end of work, but you know, again, life is good, no complaints here. So.
Where did he ever go to school, your son that came here?
He went to Emory University.
Emory, okay.
And Kev, to be honest, he ran for about a month, and that was the end of that. And so in some respects, it kind of worked out for you all right. So.
Well, my daughter did 1 year of cross country at the junior high in 7th grade, and she hung it up already. It's too hard for her. Too hard. So, Mark Hulme, I know we've talked. Your son was a student here, ran for us for a bit, managed us. Tell us what you're up to.
Well, I live in Tustin Ranch, California, Southern California, with my wife, Joanne, and 4 kids. Michael, who you know, coach, is 24. He graduated from Bucknell last year and works at a bank in their commercial real estate lending group out here. Kelly is 23. She graduated from USC last year with no graduation, unfortunately, and spent the last semester at home, which was a bummer. But yeah, she worked for a commercial insurance broker out here. My son David's 21. He's a senior at USC. He's a real estate development major. He's an 800-meter runner on the USC track team. And then Casey, our youngest, is 20. She's a junior at University of San Diego with a psychology major. So it's great. All 4 kids decided to go to a private college, which has been just wonderful. I had them as a freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior in college. I think that was the worst year of my life.
Oh, my God.
I'm a partner and the chief financial officer at Westar Associates, which is a real estate development company out here, and I've been with the company for 29 years.
All right. Just an FYI, Mark's son, Michael, ran for us for a year. He had some, injuries that he kind of brought with him from high school, and he was the nicest guy. I loved him. And, and when he hung it up, it was tough, but he was still close to the program. And every time we did the Hulme Challenge, we always did the Hulme Challenge. We always do that in late March when we get back from spring break. He always came. He was always at workout. So.
I'm curious to see what that entailed.
Never mind.
Harsh, what do you think?
No comment. No comment.
It gets embellished every year. What's funny, when I got the Bucknell, I heard about the Hulme Challenge. And of course, the guys were saying, yeah, he used to do 40 of them in 30 seconds, and basically sprinted across the field with Coach Golden, which only took like 15 seconds. And then when I finally talked to him, I think he said, yeah, I think I did about 13 once. We still tell our kids it's 40.
There you go.
We do it a little differently. I have them go at mile pace, which most of our guys aren't quite at your mile pace. So they'd run like 31s for the 200s and jog across, and they could get about 20 to 25 of them in. So, but your son really enjoyed coming to that one and the workout. So, all right, Brian, tell us about your life now.
Wow, I got a lot to try and measure up to here. I married my Bucknell sweetheart, Maureen. You guys know her as Mo. And we've pretty much lived in Central Jersey ever since college. We have 3 kids. They're all pretty much up and out. My oldest is due to be married in August, and we're excited about that. I went to work for the New Jersey Attorney General's office. I was a detective for 25 years. After 25 years, I said it's time to retire. And so I'm living off the dole, as they say. But I worked for a few years with Homeland Security. Now I'm more or less contracting over at New Jersey Department of Transportation, doing investigations for them. And life is good. Life is good.
All right, thanks. And Bill, it's been a while since I've seen you.
It has. I had to dig out the one shirt that I had is the one you gave.
Oh, yeah, I remember when we made those.
When I came and talked. I live in just outside of Raleigh, North Carolina, in Apex, with my wife and my daughter. We moved down here last year from the Philadelphia suburbs. So I've, after graduating, I was lucky enough to have a professional career. And, I ran professionally for about 10 years until I eventually had an injury. 1991 was my best year. I won 2 national championships in 89 and 91. 91, I was ranked 2nd road racer in the world by Runner's World. So that was my best year, but that was also the year where I kind of pushed my training to the brink to get those results and ended up in an injury that started at the Olympic trials of all places. And then that was kind of the beginning of the end for me. I was lucky enough to turn my passion for running into a profession. And I've been working in and around the endurance industry ever since. I worked for Adidas at the global headquarters, global brand marketing in Germany for 5 years. And I went to Portland and head of sports marketing for running and track and field for a number of years. And then I came to the East Coast and bumped around for VP of marketing for some athletic brands. I currently have my own agency called VO2 Marketing. And I have clients around the country that have something to do with the endurance industry. Then I own some camps called Camp Runabout. It's an adult summer camp for runners. And right now I have 2 of those in the Pocono Mountains in Pennsylvania and one and I just opened one in North Carolina as well.
Were you able to have those camps this summer because of COVID?
I was not able to have them, but I was lucky because people could either ask for a refund or defer, and 90% of my people just rolled over to next year.
Okay, that's good. That's good. So, all right. What I'm going to do, guys, is I have a few questions here, but I'm not going to give each person the same question. Otherwise, we'll go beyond the hour that we have allotted here. I got the 70s guys coming in at 8 o'clock. All right. But my next question, I'm going to throw this back at Mark. Mark, take us back to the beginning and tell us about your recruiting experience and how you ultimately chose to run at Bucknell.
Well, so let's see, my recruiting experience. I think I still have the letters from Jumbo Elliott at Villanova and Harry Groves at Penn State that said I wasn't good enough to be recruited by their programs. And so I made sure every time that we ran against Villanova and Penn State that I ran my best. And I did have some very good races against those two programs. But I was recruited by St. Joe's in Philadelphia. My dad and I then drove down to visit the campus. Coach Quinn met with us. He knew I was looking at Bucknell as well, and he told us, you know, Bucknell's not going to be any good. They lost Buckeye, Bickle, and Edmonds, so you definitely want to come to St. Joe's. Before we left, he offered me a full scholarship, which was, you know, I was very grateful for that. But we then drove from Philadelphia to Bucknell and met Coach Goulden. I knew that my parents couldn't afford to send me to Bucknell. And so I really didn't want to say how badly I wanted to go there. But after meeting Coach Goulden on our drive home, my dad said, you know, I'd really like to see you go to Bucknell, and we will figure out some way to pay for it, which I always appreciated that so much, the sacrifice that they made. And for me, honestly, it was the reason I came to Bucknell, and the reason my dad wanted me to go to Bucknell was because of Coach Goulden.
Okay. Going to go with Bill. Tell us your recruiting story. Bill Reifsnyder, you want to tell us your recruiting story?
It's on mute.
You're on mute. I listened to you earlier instruction.
Okay. Sorry, start from the beginning now.
You missed the best part. No, I was saying, I was 30 minutes down the road. I grew up in Williamsport. And so I saw a lot of Coach. So, it was easy for him to bop down and kind of come to some of our meets. I was recruited by, quite a few, schools, big and small. Traveled to a lot of them and was offered scholarships. And it was a hard decision. I mean, because on one hand, kind of, what Mark said, it was a full scholarship somewhere else. And I eventually chose to go to Bucknell where, they didn't have athletic scholarships. And for me, I think the thing was obviously Coach in the program that he had built, had this awesome piece of track, and he told me it was going to be, we were going to have this beautiful track that's in the background there by our sophomore year.
I remember.
But, if it was kind of the best combination between academics and athletics for me. And that was my ultimate decision to come to Bucknell. Was
the track still Sender at the time?
Yeah, I think that, I don't know what year they actually got an outdoor track, but it was Cinder. So the challenge was always done on cinders.
Okay. Do you guys remember when they resurfaced the track?
Well, after
you left. Okay.
Yeah.
I graduated in '88, and it was still cinders then.
Yeah. Okay.
We didn't have one home meet in my 4 years.
Wow. All right. And then before we go to the next question, I'm going to ask Rick to tell us your recruiting experience.
Mine kind of started, I started running, I guess, halfway through my junior year in high school. And the team I was at, it's not where I graduated. We went up to camp there, to the cross-country camp at Bucknell, because that team had gone there before. And I had gotten into trouble several nights in a row with Coach Goulden for some physical altercations, I suppose. And
at the camp?
Yeah, there was some competitions between teams, and there was some basketball games and some physical arguments, I guess. But not with Coach. But so I was surprised when he actually made a phone call to me, and frankly, I'm the I was doing college on my own. My parents weren't interested in it or anything else like that. And so it was, to me, it was thrilling that he was calling me, especially after I was in trouble most of the time. But he is, you know, he is like these guys will tell you. He was just one of a kind, and there was no doubt where I was going, just because of the personality. And he said, "You're in," and I said, well, okay, yeah, I'm there." And that was really it. And I was the very bottom end of his class. We had a very talented class that came in, but you know, he showed me the same kind of love he showed all the other guys who were running 9 minutes, you know, and winning state titles. So it was all about him, all about his charisma, all about his personality. So
Wow. What was your best? What was your best 2 mile in high school?
10:01.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great improvement. All right, we're going to let our senior here, Evan, ask the next question. Evan, why don't you go ahead?
All right. So this question is more open-ended and can go to anybody. So what advice would you give me or any of the other runners that are in our program today about the college cross-country experience at Bucknell?
Why don't you pick a guy? Just pick someone.
Let's go with Mark Hulme.
So Evan, I would say, you know, looking back and trying to give you the advice from my own personal experience, it's to, you know, appreciate how lucky you are to be a part of a program like this, to be part of a university like this. And it's up to you then to kind of make the most of every day, you know, to get up every morning and have a goal, you know, kind of think about what you want to accomplish. You know, you have long-term goals and short-term goals. And if you keep achieving your short-term goals, you're going to get to your long-term goal. But I can say for me, the bonds of friendship that I had with the guys on the team, and I think I looked through my logbooks. I think we did over 18,000 miles in 4 years at Bucknell. And, you know, the bonds of friendship that you make with the guys on the team are still the strongest bonds of friendship that I have in my life. And I think we pushed each other. You know, you're talking to guys on this call that were successful at school, have been successful when they got out of school. And so much of what we learned together and we pushed each other and taught each other, you know, carried on for the rest of our lives. And so live in the moment, appreciate what you have, and, you know, make the most of it.
Yeah, we've definitely been speaking to that on our own end recently, just talking about culture and appreciating what we have now, especially not having our past spring season. That's very ironic and how similar that actually is, because we've just been talking about that the past couple of weeks with the guys as a whole. I guess next, I'd also like to direct this question to Charles Cole.
I think mainly I just reinforce what Mark said, that, you know, these are people you'll probably be close to your whole life, and you'll probably never have as big a group like that you'll be close to like this. So, you know, really enjoy those friendships and that closeness. The other thing I would say, and this is one of the things Coach Gould always encouraged, is, you know, believe that you can beat people that no one else believes you can beat. I mean, I think we ran some times and we beat some people that nobody expected us to beat. And that was all because Coach told us we could. So believe in yourselves and believe in the team and just enjoy it.
Thanks, Charles. Just an FYI, our kids, to Mark, you came for winter break a couple years ago and talked to our team, and our kids still talk about that. Evan, you were a part of that, weren't you?
Yeah, I was here.
Yeah. That was good, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The buildup of that, trying to chase that 4-minute barrier was really.
I think. Yeah, I think the way that
it's like, oh, yeah.
The way that you told the story, I think from how we perceived it the whole time, we thought like you were building up and building up and building up, and then it was just going to happen. Then when you told us, and we all just sat there and we looked at each other, and we just kind of like didn't know what to say. We were kind of shocked. We thought it was going to be like almost like just like one of those, I don't know, like a Disney ending where like it always ends well. And when you told us how it ended, we all just looked at each other in disbelief.
And, I think one of the lessons I tried to impart to you guys that day was I could look at that and say, I failed because I did not achieve my ultimate goal. But, looking back, I always focus on the positive. It was probably still the best 4 years of my life. And I think I learned so many things in those 4 years. And one of them was to bounce back from failure or from obstacles that I couldn't overcome, and to still go on and, have a successful life and be a successful person.
All right. This next question is going to go to Brian. Brian, you ran for Hall of Fame coach Art Goulden. Can you share what kind of impact he made on your life and maybe your favorite Art Goulden story?
The first part of that is easy. The impact was huge, absolutely huge. And as far as my favorite story, there's so many of them. I mean, I don't think this goes for just me, but I'm sure all the guys kind of feel the same way. I mean, I went for years and years and years where I probably didn't go through a day without thinking of Art Goulden at some point during the day. It really hit home a few years ago. I started coaching high school cross country, track and field. And I heard myself saying some of the same things that Coach said, which in this day and age was kind of a problem. When you say things like, wait a second, they let women drive, and say, what next? They're going to get the right to vote, and I'm like, wow, I guess I can't say those things. But anyway, Coach was a very complicated guy. It took a while to get to know him. But once you did, I mean, it was amazing. As a favorite story, maybe we had this thing. We would send a team to the Milrose games to run the 4x8. And I guess my sophomore year, I sort of surprised myself and I think others, and I did well in the trial, and I actually made that team and got to go. And one of the coolest things was listening to Coach embellish all these stories about before he was a Mormon, on the way back in the station wagon. Coach would tell stories, and every time he would tell the story, it would get a little more embellished. But he just an amazing guy. And I don't know. One of my other favorite stories was about Coach Goulden. Was I first met Art Goulden. I was introduced to him just before the 1979 NCAA cross country championships at Lehigh. Rick, you ran in the race that year. The team was 17th. And I was introduced to him. He said, we'll talk later. He introduced me to all these guys wearing Bucknell sweatshirts, and I ran around the cross country court, rooting for Bucknell, and it was like, I was hooked, If he did that to these people and created this tradition, I'm in, and so that's sort of it in a nutshell.
So this is before you even committed to Bucknell, right?
Oh yeah, I was a junior in high school. Yep.
Huh. I'm going to go to Rick Sayre. You also ran for Art Goulden. Can you tell us the impact he had on your life and your favorite story?
I mean, there's so many different stories with Coach. Coach and I would get in the car sometimes, and I think for junior nationals, he and I got in the car and drove to Indiana by ourselves. We spent a week together in Texas and California, living with his brother-in-law for a while for some AAU stuff. But I think, Coach was probably the most important male, I'm going to say father figure in my life. To be honest, like Bryce said, a day doesn't go by where I don't think of him and the lessons. But, Coach is a guy who was at my wedding. Coach is a guy who came up with the christening of my kids, and that's what he was. He was just he was a mentor in so many ways. And also, like Brian said, he was a complicated guy. So I probably had as many arguments with Coach as I've had with anybody in my entire life. And I mean, I've been kicked out of his house and called a jackass and beyond that. But we tested his Mormon values a few times. But he was. But if you were his guy, if you were on his team, you were his guy, and he would back you up no matter what. And I believe it was sophomore year, indoors. And Jimmy Knight can also, he'll come into this story, but we were trying to, in 5,000 meter to open it up, but 4 of us were trying to run together. And there was a kid from St. Joe's, if I remember right, that was Crook.
Crook, yeah.
Crook. And Coach had us running a strategic race where Jimmy O'Shea and I would run hard. We'd switch up on the straightaways just to melt them down. And it worked. But at some point, he actually, just laid down on the track and stopped. But he said someone tripped him. And they had to pick one of the 4 guys. And of all the 4 guys, they picked Jimmy Knight, the guy least likely to do anything. So, we got done with the race, and Donahue, who was the coach at Lafayette at the time and who had been fired and was working as an assistant, I think, at Lehigh, had come up to me and started screaming at me that they were going to disqualify me or disqualify us or whatever else. And he and I got into an argument about an inch apart. And then Coach came over and grabbed me and asked me if I was crazy and told me to go away. And I turn around and it's almost fisticuffs going on because he's looking to kill the coach. And it was just, it's just like, all right, no matter what, he's got your back and he is your guy. And no matter what happens at school, and there was so many different things, you could always walk into him and he took care of you and he would listen to you. And sometimes you didn't like the love you got, but you always got a little bit of love. So he was brilliant, just brilliant.
Awesome. I'm going to go to Bill Reifsnyder now. Tell us your most memorable experience as a part of the Bucknell cross country program.
Boy, so many.
You give us more than one.
I'd have to say it was IC4A's my freshman year. When I was kind of thrust. I was there, we'd run some dual meets and kind of that was the first time I was kind of thrust, or we as a team, and I'm sure the older guys, Rick and those guys had been in situations like that, but that was to date the biggest meet that I had been in. There was guys like John Gregoric, Olympian, and Sidney Murray, Olympian in the race. We kind of showed up and no one expected much of Bucknell. And, to be honest, I ran out of fear, just sheer fear. And then I was lucky enough to come down to, the final straightaway with a group of 4 of us. A guy named Sidney Keegan won it. Sidney Marie beat me by a second. I outkicked Gregoric, and I remember the newspaper coming up afterwards and saying, you just outkicked John Gregoric. And I said, John who? Not that I was being cocky, but I didn't know. I didn't know he was the only non-Kenyan in our group, and I didn't want him to beat me. But more importantly than that, then I crossed the finish line, and then another orange shirt came across the line, and another orange shirt came across the line, and another orange shirt came, and everyone's grouped together, and we won the meet. And I think everyone at that meet, and a lot of the cross country world was shocked that day that Bucknell kind of came in and beat all the big guys.
And just to give you some history there, Evan Miner, that was the combination of an East Coast championship and the NCAA qualifying meet, if I remember right. Is that correct there?
No, they sold the district meet, didn't they, guys? Yeah.
Yeah, they did.
It was just our senior year, my senior year, they combined the IC4A and the District 1 and 2.
Okay.
This would have been your junior year, right?
Gotcha.
This was my sophomore year, yeah.
Your sophomore year with it, your senior year, my freshman year.
Yeah.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah, that IC4A has changed a lot over the years on the format, when it is, how it is, and all that. It's no longer a qualifying meet for the nationals.
Well, it was held in Van Cortlandt Park, which is
right.
Cool, right? Because it's just such a tradition, you could look back through the years, and anybody who's ever been anybody has run on that course, and you can kind of compare yourself. So just a good venue as well.
Okay. Charles, what was your most memorable experience running cross country?
There's so many of them. I think there's two that come to mind. One kind of personal, and the other more team related. My junior year, we had a home meet against, I don't know who, but I ended up running fairly fast, and I think I had the second fastest time by a Bucknellian on the home course behind Bill. And that was the same day that George Buckite got inducted in the Hall of Fame, and he made a point of complaining that I knocked him back when I'm there. So that felt good. The other was my junior year.
He's on the next Zoom call. We'll mention that.
There you go. So 1986 at the IC4A meet, which was Region 2 and 1 combined, we ended up finishing first as a team. And the year before we'd finished fourth, so we missed going to nationals. And then the next year we got first. We had 3 in the top 10 of the region meet, and it was just, again, Little Bucknell beating Georgetown and Penn State and all and Navy and all the big teams. So that I think was probably one of my proudest moments there.
All right. I'm going to go to the next question here, and we'll go with Brian. Brian, who was the teammate you admired the most throughout your career, and why?
Wow. Obviously the people on this Zoom call definitely would be at the top of that list. But I kind of think that it's more of a group effort. It's more like I mentioned the tradition before. I think Buckate, Bickle, and Edmonds passed that tradition down to Rick. Rick passed it to Mark, and down it goes. And Rick was my first captain. Obviously, I had huge respect for him. Mark, same thing. Bill's probably the most talented athlete I've ever trained with. So all these guys, I had tremendous respect for. But I would say that I also had respect for all those other guys who you were out there doing the work every single day and were completely committed to the program. My roommate Rosie, Doc, Hazy, Mike Decker, Jerry Jurek, all these guys. I was blessed to be there sort of at the heyday. But there's too many people that I looked up to there to just single out one.
Yeah, I would concur with Brian on that. I just think, I think when I think of my time at Bucknell, I think that the teams, the groups, and the things we were able to do. I think at one point we had 9 guys under 9 minutes at one time in history on the team. We had 9 guys that could break 9 minutes, which is incredible. And they weren't 9-minute guys coming out of high school. They were 10-minute guys coming out of high school. We'd win the conference championships. And not like, but with 15 points, but not even the first five coming across the line together, as one group. We kind of took it for granted that that's just kind of what we did, and I think that comes from the tradition. It was, we didn't create the tradition, we just kind of carried it on and tried to pass it along. But the depth that we had and the things that we were able to achieve as a group and as a team, and I think that's what pushed everybody. Me from the, at the time I was lucky enough to be the #1 guy, but that's still what pushed me. And I think that was pretty amazing. When I think back of the time at Bucknell as a team, that's what I think of. Just the group that we had that pushed each other in practices and the camaraderie that we had and what we were able to do against the other teams in the conference or whatever the competition would have been. That was pretty amazing.
Right. Maybe, Evan, maybe you could throw some questions out there.
Okay. So my next question that I have is, what advice do you have about networking and finding the right job after Bucknell? I guess I'll direct this one at Rick.
Oh boy, you probably picked the oldest guy and the guy who's done the least of that. I've worked in the same job, the same business my entire life, and I got into it for reasons that were family reasons. But I don't really know how to answer that. I'll try to answer that, I suppose, through my own kids, who are just a little bit older than you are. And it's really been not a whole lot of networking. I know we hear all that talk, but it's like getting into college. It's getting in the first time, or just getting in is the hardest part. And what you do afterwards is all about you, and that's what gets appreciated. My sense, and I'm a lot older than you are, is that gets overplayed a bunch. The cream rises to the top sooner or later. You're not gonna hit it at 22 or 23. And what you do at 22 or 23 and network getting into a job is one thing. But what happens after that is far more important. And that's all on you. That's all on your personality and your strength of character and your discipline and your charisma. So I'm going to go and on an opposite. I know it's a people love that phrase nowadays, but I'm an old guy and a little old school on that. So
Comment if I could. Networking is only one letter away from not working, right? So, but
Harsh is so much better at this stuff.
That's a good one.
I was kind of the same way. Nothing really helped me as far as Bucknell networking in the profession that I chose. However, when I was working with high school kids that I coached, and they went on to college, they were looking for internships, I was able to use that Bucknell network. And that is a really cool thing when you can call somebody who's, CEO of a huge engineering firm and, hey, yeah, I got an internship for your kid. That's pretty cool. So.
Evan, what are your plans for next year?
I was actually just talking about this with some of the guys. We were just sitting outside eating dinner, and they asked me, like, what do you want to do? And I have two different mind tracks right now. I don't really know what I want to. I was talking about either getting into finding a job, or if it's going to be maybe try out grad school and see if that puts me on a better track, specifically in one area, but I still don't know exactly what part yet. But if it were to be grad school, but I've always been interested in finance, but at the same time, I also have a new niche where I love just things running. I've gotten to have like some experiences with working with some of like the bigger apparel companies in the past doing things. So I also have that love. So I kind of feel drawn in two different ways.
Evan was in Colorado this past summer training at high altitude too, and put in a lot of miles. He's really worked hard and he's doing a great job, but you do have eligibility too for outdoor last spring and cross country this fall. You get that back even if we run a winter season, which, by the way, we're looking at a winter season, guys, with the league championship in March, and they're looking at a national championship at the end of mid-March or so. And so we're going to just put on the spikes and get in the snow and do some cross country and mix it in with a little indoor track. So I got to come up with a plan. This next question is going to be for all of you. I've been here, this is my 20th year at Bucknell. We've had our share of success. We've had our share of failures. We've been up and down. Haven't been able to get it to the level that you guys took it to. I do things a little different. The track is field. We've done very successful there, beating Army, Navy at times. But with that said, I do want to hear what advice would you give me as the current head coach of this program? And I'm taking notes. We're always trying to get better. So we'll start from left to right, and I see Brian there first.
Wow, thanks a lot. I guess, I think the trend over the last, since I graduated college, actually, the trend has been, everybody says do more with less, And I think we were very successful, you know, back in the 80s, you know, doing more, you know, and we were successful, I think, in large part because we worked harder than the people we competed against. And so there's something to be said, in my opinion, for doing 100-mile weeks. You know, I think a lot of us benefited from that kind of thing. So, you know, I don't know. I'm obviously not the expert, but sometimes maybe more is more, you know?
Mm-hmm. Rick?
I don't know if the guys would agree or not, but.
Well, I'm going to agree with Brian completely. So more is more. I mean, it's a fine line because at some point, and Bill kind of, you know, touched on this a little bit earlier, you train to a certain point and think you can go beyond a little bit, you start to break down. There is a fine line, and sometimes you do break down and you've got to come back from it. But I agree, there's no substitute for the more sometimes. It really is. And you take a risk that way and see what happens, but it functioned. But I'm not going to tell you how to coach. This is what you do
Sure.
for a living. It's not what I do for a living. So
yep. We're actually doing that. We're experimenting with that with, you know, Evan here has been running hundreds, you know, for a while now. And,
there you go.
A couple other guys are at that level, and it seems like the critical mass right now is in the 80s, and which is higher than it used to be. So yeah, we think that's the way to go.
Well, you got the 70s guys coming on, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So you know, I was hoping to be asked the question, who's the most influential guy? Ask Lee Edmonds whether you should do more or less.
Okay.
I kind of know the answer you're going to get, but yeah.
Yeah, I'll ask him that.
Yep.
Charles, anything besides just run more?
You know, I came in after all of these guys left, except for Brian. Brian was my first captain there. And I think at that point, the mileage had cut back a little bit. I've never run a 100-mile week. We were typically running in the mid-80s during cross country when I was there. So I don't know if more would have been better when I was there or not. I think the biggest thing, and I commented on this earlier, is just getting the kids to believe that they can beat people that they don't think they can beat. You know, I mean, coach would often tell us we were not as good as other people, but then went out and said you train harder and then you can beat them. So yeah, convince them that they can beat people and then watch them do it.
All right. Bill?
Well, I think there's a couple of points. You know, I'm probably, you know, I ran a long time after college, and so I've tried a lot of different things and try to find out. I agree with the group. I think more is more, but I think you have to run smart. And I don't think there is such a thing as one size fits all training. So, and I think that's tough from a coaching perspective at the collegiate level because you're coaching 30 plus guys. You know, but I would say to whatever degree you can do it, whether it's having guys, you know, add on a little bit more. I mean, some guys are going to thrive off of 80 miles a week, and some guys, I mean, when I was running at the world class level and we'd all line up and we'd all be, you know, coming down the last 200 meters side by side, none of us got there the same way. All of us, even at that level, trained differently. Some guys thrived off 130 miles a week. Some guys thrived off of 80 miles a week. My apologies. So I think you really, you know, there's different systems you have to train, and that's, you know, you have to train your VO2 max and your anaerobic threshold. You have to do your long runs for strength and hill workouts. So, and I'm sure you're good at putting that combination together. I would say within that combination, then you try to look at the individuals who are doing it and then separate them wherever you can into pockets of 10 guys or 15 guys or whatever you have where you can kind of see definitive breaks in the group where maybe, you know, some guys start a couple seconds. You know, coach did that a lot. I mean, he would start some of the faster guys, you know, a couple seconds, you know, but, you know, if we were running horseshoe.
Handicap them. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, we just chase the other guys and we'd all kind of end together. But individualize it you know, as best you can. There's no substitute for hard work, but you have to, you know, when you're training hard, you also have to train smart. You know, and there's a fine line, as Rick alluded to a second ago, between being as fit as you can be and being injured. And you want to kind of get close to that line, but obviously, and that's where you have to teach your athletes to listen to their body. And, if their body is telling them something, know when to back off. And believe it or not, that's the easy part of my answer. The hard part is to get the guys to drink the Kool-Aid, and we were fortunate enough. We just, the Kool-Aid was being served long before I got there. So we show up on day one and it's just kind of putting your hand. And so, so I think that's the hard thing to do for any coach in any sport at any level, is get that momentum and get a tradition, and then everyone buys into the tradition and they join the team because of it. And that's we had that. And once again, I didn't create that. I got it from the guys before me. So I think, but that's the hard thing to do. But I think that, I think coming up and just, my thing would be just try to look at the individual athletes on the team and don't say, it's not like, one workout, it's not going to benefit every single person the same way. And so if you can individualize it somewhere in there, that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, the program I run, the volume does, it varies according to the individual.
Yeah.
And so we try to, decide who's who. And
our volume didn't vary. The only difference in our volume, in our miles was everyone doubled. If you're a freshman, you double with 3 in the morning, and then once you become a sophomore, you go to 5. Sophomore, juniors, and seniors all did 5 in the morning. Mm-hmm. So everyone kind of doubled, but I think it's more your quality days, your tempo runs, and your speed workouts. I think you can push. I don't know what you guys do for long runs. You could push up your long runs a little bit more, maybe. We didn't do a ton of really over distance stuff when we were there, but we were doing 100 miles a week. But I think the longer, 15 milers.
Yeah, that's actually, since the pandemic started, we've challenged our kids a little bit more because we're not racing.
Yeah.
And one thing I've done is the long run, and Evan can attest to this, is our long run now is pretty high quality. We really crank it out, especially toward the end there. Now, I was always a little chicken to do that when you're in season because you're racing, and we kind of want to make our long run on Sundays, the day after a race, so you want them to recover. But without the racing, we've been really, pushing it pretty good with some fartleks, some tempos, progressions. And Evan, you said you liked that the other day. Been making out on that pretty good, you think?
Yeah, definitely. I think I've talked about this a lot the past couple weeks, or even throughout the summer with a lot of people. It's just this time, even though how much you can say that it sucked, I've taken it into a perspective where I can kind of learn more about myself. This past spring was more pushing my mileage up, trying a lot different things that I'd never done before, longer fartleks, to the point where the one that sticks in my head all the time was a 4x2 mile fartlek. And if you had told me months before that I was going to do something like that, I would have probably said, no, there's no shot. Or doing 16, 17 mile long runs with quality mixed in, I would have said no way I was going to ever do that or do something like that. And now, to the fact where I had done it, and now it's almost become a normalcy for guys to do longer fartleks tempos and kind of work up to this. I think a lot of guys have really seen the results of it, especially how Coach Donner said earlier, this past weekend we had a time trial, and for the majority of us, just coming off a lot of fartleks, tempos, long runs, mileage, and for a lot of us saw pretty big results, and for a lot of guys they ended up walking away with PRs just on the first rust.
I like those kind of workouts because I think that most people tend to do their easy days easy and the hard days hard, but I think learning to run on tired legs, there's benefits to that. When I was training for a marathon, I would do a workout. I do 18 miles. I do it pretty hard. I do a 6-minute pace, just trying to get myself tired. This is at 5,000 feet. Then I do a 5-mile tempo run at 4:40 pace. And then I would go and do a 3-mile cool down. But the point of the 4:30, the point was to get myself really, really tired, kind of like you would be late in a marathon, and then run hard. So I think kind of assimilating, instead of doing your speed, just kind of combining that, learning to run and when you're fatigued both mentally and physically is good.
Mark, you got 1.5 minutes to tell us give me some advice.
Well, Coach, you and I have talked about this over the years, and I know you value kind of the entire, student experience, trying to balance academics and athletics and social. And, Coach just expected us to be good at academics. He expected us to be disciplined and to, budget our time. I had a lot of, talks with him about that because I was not one of the scholarly leaders of our team. But really, one of the things that he did, we did not have the five-star recruits. I think Bill's probably the only five-star recruit we ever had at Bucknell. And so what we did as a team was he took average guys that were willing to work hard, and we did run 100 miles a week. And I think part of it, Coach had a 4-year plan for all of us, and you kind of built that. But the strengths that we built over 4 years, and it was challenging. I mean, it was challenging to do this kind of mileage for that long, but it builds strength. Honestly, for me as a miler, I think I overtrained for the mile, but we were an elite cross-country team. We weren't necessarily an elite track team, but the cross-country guys, we could beat other teams because we out-trained everybody. And that was one way that we could all train together. I know what everybody's saying about doing separate workouts and breaking people. Everybody ran the same workout. I remember just quickly, Coach, my senior year, Bill and I had to show up to the golf course before the rest of the team. And he wouldn't tell us what we were doing, but we ran horseshoe miles in 450, 436, 426 before the rest of the team even got there. And then he told them, we're going to do a 2-mile, don't tell them. And Bill and I didn't even know we were doing it. We thought we were doing another horseshoe mile, and we just kept going. And then we did 3 more horseshoe miles. I mean, he challenged you to expand what you thought the limits of how hard you could work, what you were capable of, how much pain you could withstand. And, he built mental toughness. That was his key, is if we could survive this stuff, we believed whatever he told us, we believe we could do.
It's good advice there. So.
Well, good job, everyone. Kevin, great job on the timing, too. You got it down to the T here. Before we wrap up, I just want to turn our attention to Evan. And Evan, I want to thank you again for taking the time out to be on the session tonight. Wish you the best of luck with the rest of this semester. Stay healthy, stay safe. And we're going to keep our fingers crossed that you are actually competing this winter and this spring. No one knows what's going to happen exactly, but we're all hoping for that. And when you are, we'll be out there rooting for you and the rest of the Bison track and field. And
good luck, Evan. Good luck, Coach.
Yep. Good luck. Good luck,
everyone. Good luck.
And guys, I want to thank you again for joining tonight and sharing all of your experiences. And really, just as importantly, thank you for what you did while you were at Bucknell competing for the Bison, and what you've done for the Spike Shoe program since you left the university. The program wouldn't be the family program that it is without the support that it gets from everybody. And I really appreciate what you do for Coach Donner and the current athletes in our program. So thank you for that. And for those of you that tuned in tonight to watch at home, thanks for doing that. And go Bison.